Prepare to be amazed as we journey back in time to uncover the legendary tale of Samson, the strongest man in the Bible. In this episode of Bible Stories Explained, we unravel the incredible feats and untold stories of this biblical hero. From his supernatural strength to his captivating adventures, Samson's story is one of power, passion, and purpose. Get ready to dive deep into the ancient scriptures and discover the timeless lessons hidden within. Let's embark on this epic adventure together. Do you believe in supernatural strength and redemption? In the next minute, we will reveal the epic story of Samson, an atypical hero with extraordinary powers and deep human flaws. From a divine promise to a tragic fall, your journey is filled with mystery, betrayal, and a final twist that will challenge everything you know about faith and destiny. Don't miss every crucial moment of this narrative that blends the divine with the human in a way never seen before. This is not just a biblical story. It is a life lesson that resonates to this day. Stay with us and discover how a man with the strength of 1,000 can be as vulnerable as any of us. Are you ready to be surprised? To understand the birth of Samson, it is key to understand that, at that time, Israel was under the rule and oppression of the Philistines. Samson was born in Nazareth and was chosen by God to carry out his work in Israel. He was given extraordinary strength for this mission. His life is narrated in the book of Judges. Once again, the Israelites disobeyed the Lord, and therefore he allowed them to fall into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years, as recounted in Judges 13 verse 1. At this point, the story introduces us to a man named Manoah, whose wife could not conceive, as mentioned in Judges 13-2. There was a man in Sora of the tribe of Dan named Manoah, and his wife was barren and had no children. The angel of the Lord appeared to her and said, "You are going to give birth to a son. This child, this miracle, would be Israel's next liberator, as described in Judges 13 verse 3. And the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, Indeed you are barren and have had no children, but you will conceive and bear a son." This type of miraculous event was repeated several times in the Bible, such as in the birth of Isaac in the Old Testament and John in the New Testament. This promised child would grow up to save Israel from the power of the Philistines. With this role came a special condition. The angel instructed Manoah's wife to raise the son according to the Nazirite vow, explained in the book of Numbers. In Numbers 6.1.5, the Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the children of Israel and tell them, when a man or woman makes a special vow, the Nazirite vow, to consecrate yourself to the Lord, you must abstain from wine and fermented beverages, and you must not drink vinegar made from wine or fermented beverages. They were not to drink grape juice, eat grapes, or raisins. While under the Nazirite vow, they were not to consume anything that came from the vine, not even the seeds or husks. During the entire period of his Nazirite vow, no blade was to touch his head. They were to be holy until the period of their dedication to the Lord was over. They had to grow their hair long. This meant that he could not drink wine or beer, nor cut his hair. Interestingly, the angel advised the woman not to consume wine or beer during pregnancy, nor to eat anything impure. This meant that her child would be consecrated to God as a Nazirite from the womb. Even though the heavenly visitor was speaking directly to her, the woman went to her husband and informed him about what had happened. As it is in Judges 13:8-13. Then Manoah prayed to the Lord and said, "O Lord, please allow the man of God whom you sent to return to us and teach us what we should do for the son who will be born." And God heard the voice of Manoah. And the angel of God came again to the woman, while she was sitting in the field. But Manoah, her husband, was not with her. Then the woman hurriedly ran and told her husband, saying, "Look, the man who came to me the other day has just appeared to me." Then Manoah got up and followed his wife. When he reached the man, he asked, "Are you the man who spoke to this woman?" And he answered, "It's me." Manoah said, "May your words be fulfilled. What will be the rule of life of the child and his work?" Then the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, "Of all that I said to the woman, that she should be careful. He must not eat anything that comes from the vine, nor drink wine or similar drink, nor eat anything impure. Everything that I ordered her, let her observe." Manoah probably mistook him for a simple man sent by the Lord and said, Please stay here and we will prepare a goat for you." The visitor agreed to stay, but said he would not eat anything. It was more appropriate for the couple to offer a burnt offering. When Manoah placed the burnt offering on a rock, as requested, the visitor did something miraculous. He rose in the flame and ascended to heaven. At this, Manoah and his wife fell on their faces to the ground. Suddenly, Manoah was filled with terror and said, "We will surely die, because we have seen God." He correctly associated the angel of the Lord with God, as described in Judges 1:4.19.24. Then Manoah took the goat along with the grain offering and offered it on the rock to the Lord. And a wonderful thing happened as Manoah and his wife watched. It came to pass, as the flame rose toward heaven from the altar, that the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame of the altar. When Manoah and his wife saw this, they fell with their faces to the ground. When the angel of the Lord no longer appeared to Manoah and his wife, then Manoah knew that it was the angel of the Lord. And Manoah said to his wife, "We will surely die, because we have seen God." But his wife said to him, "If the Lord had wanted to kill us, he would not have accepted a burnt offering and a grain offering from our hands, nor would he have shown us all these things, nor would he have told us such things at this time." Then the woman gave birth to a son and named him Samson. The child grew up and the Lord blessed him, and the Spirit of the Lord began to work in him in Eden, between Zorah and Eshtaol. Manoah's wife named her son Samson. God blessed him and the Spirit of the Lord began to move in him, preparing Samson for the task ahead. Samson made some questionable decisions in life for someone who had been set apart for God's service from birth, proving in the end that God can use a person in spite of themselves. Samson went to Timnath, and there he saw a Philistine girl. He told his parents that he wanted to marry her. His parents tried to counsel him wisely, telling him that he should not marry someone who was not part of God's people. But they did not know that his interest in this particular woman came from the Lord, who wanted to use the Philistines to provide an opportunity for confrontation, as is in Judges 1:4.1.4. Samson went to Timnath and saw a Philistine girl. When he returned, he said to his father and mother, "I saw a Philistine woman at Timnath. Now get her for me as my wife." His father and mother asked, "Is there no acceptable woman among your relatives or among all our people? Do you have to go to the uncircumcised Philistines to get a wife?" But Samson said to his father, "Get it for me. She is the one for me." His parents did not know that this was from the Lord, who was looking for an occasion to confront the Philistines, since at that time they dominated Israel. Samson was attacked by a young lion during his journey to Timnath, where his future wife lived. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him strongly, and he tore the lion with his own hands. This was a clear sign that he had been chosen and qualified by God for a supernatural mission, as recounted in Judges 14 verses 5-7. Samson went with his father and mother to Timnath. As he approached the vineyards of Timnath, suddenly a young lion came roaring towards him. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, so that he tore the lion with his own hands, as if he were tore a goat. But he did not tell either his father or his mother what he had done. Then he went down and talked to the woman, and she pleased him. Samson decided to propose a riddle to the Philistines during a party that was probably his engagement party. The prize for solving the puzzle in 1 week would be 30 changes of clothes. In biblical times, an extra set of clothing was a sign of honor and dignity. Remembering his recent hunt and the honey that resulted from it, Samson exclaimed, "Out of the dining room came food and out of the fork came sweetness." This is narrated in Judges 14:10-14. His father went down to see the woman and there Samson held a banquet, as was the custom among the young men. When the people saw him, they selected 30 men to be his companions. "Let me propose a riddle to you," Samson said to them. "If you can give me the answer during the 7 days of the festival, I will give you 30 changes of linen clothing and 30 sets of garments. If you cannot give me the answer, you will have to give me 30 changes of linen clothing and 30 sets of clothes." "Tell us your riddle," they said. "Let's listen." He answered, "From the dining room, something to eat, from the fort, something sweet." For 3 days they could not find the answer. The Philistines were furious at not being able to decipher the riddle. They threatened to kill Samson's fiancée, who was one of their own, and her family unless she got Samson to reveal the answer and share it with them. Frightened, she cried before Samson for 7 days. And finally he couldn't take it anymore, since she pestered him so much. As a result, he revealed the solution to her. Later, when the Philistine man repeated the answer, Samson knew how they had obtained it. The Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him. And he killed 30 Philistine men in another city, giving his clothes to those men to fulfill the agreement he had made. After that he returned home, but not with his wife. Over time, Samson brought more destruction to the Philistines. He wanted to visit his wife, but her father did not allow him to enter her room. He had given her to another man, for she supposed that Samson was not happy with her. Samson destroyed his crops by capturing 300 foxes, tying their tails together with ropes and torches, setting them on fire, and releasing them into his fields, as recounted in Judges 1:5.1.5. Later, at wheat harvest time, Samson took a goat and went to visit his wife. He said, "I'm going to my wife's room." But his father didn't let him enter. "I was sure you hated her," he said. "So I gave it to your partner. Isn't her younger sister more attractive? Take it instead." Samson told them, "This time I have the right to take revenge on the Philistines. I will really harm them." Then he went out and took 300 foxes and tied them tail to tail in pairs. He tied a torch to each pair of tails, lit the torches, and released the foxes into the Philistines' wheat fields. He burned both the ears and the wheat, along with the vineyards and the olive trees. The Philistines retaliated by killing Samson's wife and his father. And Samson, in turn, avenged the murders with his own hands, as described in Judges 15-6-8. When the Philistines asked, "Who did this?" they were informed by Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because his wife was given to his companion. Then the Philistines came up and burned her and her father to death. Samson told them, "Since you have acted like this, I swear that I will not stop until I get revenge on you." He attacked them violently and killed many of them. Then he went down and stayed in a cave in the rock of Etam. The Philistines surrounded a town in Judah to take revenge on Samson while he hid in a cave. To appease the Philistines, 3,000 men from Judah went to arrest Samson, telling him that he had caused trouble by provoking the Philistine oppressors. Don't lose the irony of the situation. The Israelites chose to hand over to the Philistines the man God had sent to save them from them. Samson only agreed to go with them after they promised not to kill him themselves. This is described in Judges 15:12-13. They said to him, "We have come to bind you and hand you over to the Philistines." Samson said, "Swear to me that you yourselves will not kill me." "Okay," they responded, "we will just tie you up and hand you over, we will not kill you." Then they tied him with 2 new ropes and led him from the top of the rock. When the Philistines saw the bound Samson approaching, they cried out, but at that very moment, the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon Samson. This was bad news for the Philistines. You do not want the Spirit of the Lord to fall heavily on someone you are struggling with. Samson's enemies were at a disadvantage because he was strengthened by the Spirit of God. Given his strength, the ropes used to bind him were insignificant. He found a fresh donkey jawbone and used it to kill 1,000 men. He accomplished what would have been impossible without the Lord's help, as described in Judges 15 verses 14-15. When he approached Lay, the Philistines advanced toward him shouting. The Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him. The ropes on his arms became like burnt linen and the bonds fell from his hands. Finding a fresh donkey's jawbone, he took it and felled 1,000 men. After finishing his judgment on the Philistines, Samson became extremely thirsty and cried out to the Lord. The Lord graciously responded, restoring its vigor by creating a spring there. It was called the spring from which Samson cried. And he ruled Israel for 20 years, as mentioned in Judges 15:18-20. Being very thirsty, Samson cried out to the Lord, "You have given your servant this great victory. Should I now die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised?" Then God opened a hollow place in Lay, and water gushed out from there. When Samson drank, his strength returned and he revived. Thus, the fountain was called an Achor, and is still there in lay. Samson led Israel for 20 years in the days of the Philistines. When the Spirit of the Lord came upon Samson, it was accompanied by miraculous activity. In the Old Testament, the Spirit of the Lord came upon people in response to specific circumstances. However, since New Testament times, the Spirit of the Lord began to dwell in every believer. Ephesians January 13th, 14 states, "In whom you also, after hearing the word of truth, the gospel of your salvation, in whom also, after believing, were sealed with the Holy Spirit of promise, which is the guarantee of our inheritance, until the redemption of the acquired possession to the praise of his glory." Romans 8 verse 9 says, "But you are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if indeed the Spirit of God dwells in you." But if someone does not have the Spirit of Christ, it does not belong to them. This means that from the side of the cross, the supernatural presence of God is not related to the Spirit coming upon believers, but with the fullness of the Spirit acting within us. The Spirit came mightily upon Samson for supernatural purposes. That same Spirit is still with us today. Galatians 5:16. He says, "But I say, walk by the Spirit and you will not satisfy the desires of the flesh." That is, we are so busy living life according to the world's rules, that we forget to recognize its presence in our lives. On the other hand, we must be filled with the Spirit, which basically means living under its authority. Ephesians 5 verse 18 says, "And do not get drunk with wine, in which there is dissension, but be filled with the Spirit." Samson's personal choices become even more troubling at this point in the narrative. Samson went to Gaza, where he saw a prostitute and slept with her. For years, the people of Israel prostituted themselves to other gods, as mentioned in Judges 2 verse 17, and they still did not listen to their judges, because they prostituted themselves, going after other gods and bowing down to them. They quickly turned away from the path in which their fathers had walked, obeying the commandments of the Lord, but they did not do so. They had openly compromised their relationship with the Lord, adapting to the surrounding culture. And at this stage of his life, Samson, the leader, was living openly in a way that reflected what Israel had been doing. This trend would be his downfall. The Philistines in Gaza learned that Samson was with the prostitute and thought they had cornered him. They were guarding the exit of the city, but when Samson was ready to leave, he simply took the gates of the city along with its 2 posts and tore them down. He put them on his shoulders and carried them to the top of the mountain that is in front of Hebron. Neither you nor I could carry those heavy doors any considerable distance on flat ground. This scene serves as proof that, although Samson was outside of God's will in what he was doing, God had not yet abandoned him. Samson was on a downward spiral when Delilah came into his life and he fell in love with her. In Judges 16, 1-4. Once, Samson went to Gaza, where he saw a prostitute. He came in to spend the night with her. The people of Gaza were informed. Samson is here. So they surrounded the place and ambushed him all night at the city gate. They did not make any movement during the night, saying, "At dawn we will kill him." Then Delilah said to Samson, "You have made me look like a fool, you have lied to me, now tell me how you can be bound." He replied, "If someone ties me tightly with new ropes that have never been used, I will become as weak as any other man." Then Delilah took new ropes and tied him with them. With men hiding in the room, she called, "Samson, the Philistines are coming for you." But he broke the ropes from her arms as if they were threads. Delilah then said to Samson, "All this time you have made me look foolish and lied to me. Tell me how you can be tied." He answered, "If you weave the 7 braids of my hair into the cloth of the loom and secure it with the pin, I will become as weak as any other man." While he slept, Delilah took the 7 braids of his hair, wove them into the cloth, and secured them with the hairpin. Once again, she called, "Samson, the Philistines are coming for you." He woke up from his sleep and tore the pin from the loom along with the cloth. She also accused him of making fun of her. Of course, she wouldn't have set him up that way if she really loved him. He finally told her the whole truth because she pestered him day after day until he got tired. If he cut his hair, he would lose his strength and become like any other man. As mentioned in Judges 16:15-17, then she told him, "How can you say I love you when you don't trust me? This is the third time you make me look like a fool and don't tell me the secret of your great strength." So insistently she pressed him day after day until he became sick from so much anguish. Then he told him, "Everything, a razor has never been used on my head," he said, "because I have been a Nazirite dedicated to God since my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, I would lose my strength and become as weak as any other man." Delilah was not one to waste time. While he slept on her lap, she shaved Samson's head. And since the Philistine leaders were hiding in the shadows and had brought the silver, she was free to count her dirty money while the deed was taking place. Once Samson was made powerless, we read these sad and pitiful words. When he woke up from his dream, he said, "I will escape as before and become free." But he did not know that the Lord had abandoned him. Samson made the mistake of prioritizing his relationship with Delilah over his devotion to God. And it cost him dearly. This shows that no human relationship, no matter how intimate, can be more important than your relationship with God. Samson paid a high price for his transgression. Samson's eyes were gouged out, he was chained and forced to work in prison by the Philistines. In other words, God's adversaries had taken control of his every move. This serves as a reminder that, when God is removed from the equation, Satan takes control of the situation, as described in Judges 16:18-22. When Delilah saw that he had told her everything, she sent a message to the rulers of the Philistines. "Come again. He has told me everything." Then the rulers of the Philistines returned with the silver in their hands. After making him sleep on her lap, she called someone to shave the 7 braids of his hair and thus began to dominate him, and his strength left him. Then she called, "Samson, the Philistines are coming for you." He woke up from his dream and thought, "I will come out as before and become free." But he did not know that the Lord had abandoned him. Then the Philistines captured him, put out his eyes, and took him to Gaza. Binding him with bronze shackles, he was put to grind grain in prison, but the hair on his head began to grow back after being shaved. Here we have the feeling that God was not finished with Samson yet. The mention that Samson's hair, the source of his power, began to grow again is significant. The return of his hair was an outward symbol that he was internally repenting and turning to God. His repentance would become evident in his next prayer to the Lord. Sometimes, to capture your full attention, God needs to take you to the lowest point possible. Samson was at the bottom of the well, but his hair began to grow again. The Philistine leaders gathered to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, while Samson ground grain in prison. They were ready to celebrate that their god had delivered their enemy into their hands. At the celebration, the Philistines were joyful. They summoned Samson to entertain them, placing him between the columns of the temple. By doing this, they were setting themselves up for failure. The temple was full and there were probably around 3,000 people on the roof. Recognizing this, Samson prayed to God one last time to enable him to bring down the roof of the temple above Elas. He pushed with all his might, and the temple collapsed on the leaders and all the people as described in Judges 16:23-28. Now the rulers of the Philistines gathered together to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, and to celebrate, saying, "Our God has delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hands." When the people saw it, they praised their God, saying, "Our God has delivered into our hands our enemy, who devastated our land and multiplied our dead." But while they were animated, they shouted, "Bring Samson to amuse us." Then they called Samson from the prison, and he appeared before them. When they placed him between the columns, Samson said to the servant who was holding his hand, "Put me where I can touch the columns that support the temple so that I can lean on them." Now, the temple was full of men and women. All the rulers of the Philistines were there, and on the roof there were about 3,000 men and women watching Samson perform. Then Samson prayed to the Lord. "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just one more time, and allow me, with a single blow, to take revenge on the Philistines for both of my eyes." Thus, Samson killed more of Israel's oppressors on that day than on all the other days of his life. Unfortunately, Samson succumbed to the idolatrous culture around him and made bad decisions. However, in Hebrews 11 hours 32 minutes and 33 seconds, Samson is mentioned in the Hall of Faith, along with other righteous Old Testament heroes, such as Daniel. And every heart must be filled with hope as a result of this inclusion. Although Samson was far from perfect, he got one thing right: he believed that God could use him to accomplish his will. Therefore, let us trust in God, submit to his agenda for our lives, and give him everything we have. We have just witnessed the extraordinary saga of Samson, a story that challenges our notions of strength, faith, and human fragility. But the journey doesn't end here. If you have been fascinated by this story of power, betrayal, and divine redemption, there is much more to discover on our channel. Each video is an adventure, a new perspective on stories we thought we knew. Don't miss your chance to explore more mysteries, lessons, and revelations. Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you don't miss our upcoming videos, where each story offers a new insight into life, faith, and the power of the human spirit. And if Samson inspired you or provoked reflection, share your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your voice, your interpretations. And if you think this story can inspire others like it inspired you, please share this video. Help us spread these powerful messages. Give it a like if you enjoyed the video and join us on this day of discoveries and insights. Together we will reveal more secrets and learn from the lessons that history has to teach us. Thanks for watching, and until next time. As we close another chapter together, I know some questions may still resonate in your mind. You may be wondering how to navigate the complexities of spiritual life and unlock a path of abundance and blessings. The journey is challenging, but you don't have to walk alone. In the comments you will find a powerful key to that door that many seek to open. Discover prosperity with God, the definitive guide to overcoming spiritual challenges and living an abundant life. This is not just a book, it is the fruit of years of research, experiences, and profound revelations that are now within your reach. Imagine overcoming the barriers that prevent your spiritual and financial growth. It is a promise waiting to be fulfilled. With this guide, you are one step closer to making it a reality. Your success story begins today.